Most of my 20s looked great from the outside. There was travel and adventure, career wins that looked great on paper, nights with friends that I'll never forget. But underneath it all, there was one mistake that I kept making, and it kept me skimming the surface of life instead of fully diving in. The worst part is, I see so many other people making the exact same mistake today. I turned 30 last year, and if I could sit across from my 20-year-old self, there's one piece of advice I would give him. I really wish someone had given me this advice earlier, before I spent my 20s watching life just pass by. I spent most of my 20s chasing degrees, chasing promotions, chasing milestones I thought defined success. The danger of chasing is you're always living for the future. At uni, I couldn't wait to graduate, get a job, start earning real money. But when I finally started working, I missed the freedom I had at uni, the lack of responsibility. This was time I realized I'd never get back. And so I drifted through most of my 20s, replaying the past, planning the future, and almost never noticing the moment I was actually in. The dangerous thing about chasing success without clarity is that the achievements are never satisfying. When I started in sales, I was promoted in less than a year. A year and a half later, I was promoted again. Both times, I celebrated on the weekend, but by Monday, I was restless and already thinking about my next promotion. I was so focused on what was missing that I never stopped to fully appreciate the people and the moments right in front of me. I grew up thinking that external success equaled happiness, but the more I achieved, the less happy I felt. That's the trap I fell into in my 20s. It felt like I was stuck on a treadmill, constantly moving, always busy working towards my next goal, but never slowing down enough to enjoy the life I was living. I could finally see what the problem was. But once I stepped off the treadmill, I realized something uncomfortable. I didn't actually know how to slow down and enjoy life. I had spent years living inside my head. I was constantly living in memories of the past, worrying about what was coming up next in the future. But rarely did I stop to appreciate the moment that I was in. So I started small. One of the first real shifts for me was journaling. Putting my thoughts on paper forced me to slow down. It allowed me to get everything out of my head and actually process what I was feeling, the good and the bad. When I started practicing gratitude, things changed again. Instead of constantly focusing on what was missing, my brain started looking for what was already working, and I realized that there was a lot more good in my life than I'd been giving myself credit for. The last thing I did was the simplest, and that was just simply breathing, paying attention to the inhale and exhale of my breath. It sounds basic, but it brings me back to the moment almost instantly. Sometimes I'll do it on the train, sometimes when I'm out with friends, just to remind myself that I'm there and to be present. These practices didn't kill my ambition. They reminded me to actually enjoy the journey. Because if you keep delaying happiness until you hit some future goal, you'll never find it. I know, I spent nearly 30 years making the exact same mistake. If I could sit across from my 20-year-old self, this is what I'd say. Stop treating life like a checklist. It's important to define success for yourself and work hard towards your goals. But remember to slow down enough to actually appreciate what you're building. Happiness isn't waiting for you at the next promotion or milestone. It lives in the small, ordinary moments. The ones you miss when you're always looking ahead or living in the past, instead of simply being present. So don't let your 20s slip away the way mine did. Be present, enjoy the journey, because missing it won't just be a regret, it will be the biggest mistake you'll ever make.